good, y'all? This is Jacob from the future. Real quick, I do want to say my mic sounds just slightly off. I didn't realize that I had it actually backwards at first. I fixed it right after I talk about the first award. I tried to make it sound as best as I could in editing. It sounds a little bit weird, but don't worry. It's only for the first part of the video, and then it quickly fixes, and hopefully it doesn't distract you too much. Enjoy. We're already at the home stretch of the NBA season. It's crazy. It feels like this year just flew by already. But while we're here and fresh out of All-Star break, I wanted to give my final in-season award ballot. I will be doing one final one after the season's over before everything's announced. But in this video, I just wanted to update my list because last time I did my award ballot, it was in early December. Some things stayed the same, but a lot of things did change on these award ballots. So before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. But without further ado, let's get into the first award, and let's start off with a bang and get into the MVP. I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as my MVP right now, with Nikola Jokic as a close second, and Giannis Antetokounmpo coming in third. So while I do have Giannis coming in third, like a lot of people I'm sure, this is really a two-man race for me between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic. Real quick on Giannis, he's having an incredible season, probably the best offensive season we've seen from him since he's entered the league. The one thing kind of holding him back is the team record. The Bucks right now are only the 5th seed, and with the Pacers and the Pistons really close together, there's no real tell on where they will finish this season. Meanwhile, you look at the Nuggets and the OKC Thunder. Obviously, OKC is the #1 seed out west, and the Nuggets are tied for second. So the team record kind of gives them boost above Giannis. And I gotta be honest, it is really, really close between Jokic and Shai for me, but I do have Shai barely edging him out. Both of these guys are having all-time seasons. We know Nikola Jokic is one of the best players to really ever touch the basketball court. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having one of the best seasons by a guard that we've seen in years, probably since Steph Curry's MVP season. And obviously you have Nikola Jokic, who is an offensive juggernaut. He does everything you want on the court and then some, and is the main reason on why the Nuggets are one of the top teams in the NBA. Then you look at Shai, who's the league leader in points per game, also gives you 6 assists, 2 steals, a block at the guard position too. He's an intricate piece of obviously their offense, as he's their main ball handler, main scorer, main go-to guy, and then also defensively he is such a important piece to their #1 rated defense. I really, like I said, it's super close, but when you look at how good and how elite OKC has looked and how much Shai has contributed to that, he barely edges out Jokic for MVP. Next award we have is the Rookie of the Year, and I have Jalen Wells as the winner, with Stephon Castle coming in second and Alex Sarr as third. This year's Rookie of the Year race was one of the most interesting ones in my eyes because there's no real standout guy. There's no Luka Doncic, Victor Wembanyama, Paolo Banchero type guy in this draft class. Sometimes we have multiple of those. This year, we have none, and that's fine. I still have enjoyed watching a lot of these rookies, specifically these 3 guys as well. Kind of similar to MVP, I feel like the Rookie of the Year race kind of has separated itself into a two-man race of Jalen Wells versus Stephon Castle. Obviously, there's a few other guys you can throw around that could, be a top 3 candidate. Before injury, Jared McCain was the very easy favorite there. Then Khalil Ware got some love. I want to give a shout out to Zachary Ricochet because he was probably the 4th guy off the list here. But I have Alex Sarr as the 3rd guy, and he has really intrigued me defensively. The stuff that he's been able to come in and just use his physical dominance and kind of just show his force on the defensive end. Offensively, he's still super raw, but has shown a lot of promise there as well. In years to come for the Wizards, I'm really excited to see how he grows his game. And then Stephon Castle, he kind of had a stretch there where he was starting for the Spurs and just absolutely hooping, looking like the best guy in this draft class. Getting to the rim at absolute will. He dunks over you, finishes around you. Just a fantastic finisher as a whole. He also had some cool playmaking games out there in San Antonio where he was kind of the 2 guard with Chris Paul, but then they would run some lineups out there where he was just the sole point guard. Obviously, defensively as well, Stephon Castle will bring it. I just feel like he's been pretty up and down where, he started off a little bit rough, then he had that great stretch. Now he's hitting another rough patch. Obviously, they're rookies. No one is perfect. But when you compare that to a guy like Jalen Wells, he has just been rock solid from day one. till now. On a contending team like the Memphis Grizzlies, where there is little to no room for error there, he shot the ball incredibly well, defended incredibly well. It is cool that all three of these guys in the Rookie of the Year race really impact defensively. We don't see that a lot from young guys or from these, top award winner type of rookies. But this year's draft class is different. They came in, they're defending, and they're all impacting the game. And speaking of defense, we might as well get into Defensive Player of the Year. I have Evan Mobley as the winner, with Jaren Jackson Jr. coming in second and Dyson Daniels coming in third. Defensive Player of the Year was another award that it was a little weird making my ballot, just because first off, Victor Wembanyama, obviously he's dealing with his blood clot issue in his shoulder, so he's missing the rest of the season and will be ineligible. He was probably the Defensive Player of the Year this season before he got hurt. So you have to take him out, slide some people up. And then also, when I was just looking at like top team defenses and stuff, a lot of the top defenses in the NBA aren't solely based around like one guy. It's kind of a team effort, if that makes sense. To list off the top 5 teams in defense this year, you have OKC Thunder, Orlando Magic, Los Angeles Clippers, the Houston Rockets, and the Boston Celtics. All 5 of these guys don't have a Rudy Gobert level rim protector. They don't have a OG Anunoby type of defender on the perimeter that's really honing in. It's really a lot of just defense by committee when it comes to these teams. So it was a little weird trying to pick out like, oh, this team has the best defender or the best defense, the best defender there, he's the Defensive Player of the Year. Because I feel like that's how a lot of Defensive Player of the Years are picked. This year, though, you have none of that. Shout out to Lou Dort. He was close to making this. I was back and forth between him and Dyson Daniels. Obviously, OKC has the #1 defense this season. Lou Dort is one of their better defenders, probably their best defender, perimeter-wise at least. So I was going to give him a shout, but Dyson Daniels just barely edged him out. Obviously, Dyson Daniels leading the league in steals per game. The Hawks are not a good defense. They're not even a good team, really. So I really couldn't put him too high. But just like the fact that we have never seen a guy steal the ball and force so many turnovers, get the deflections, and we've never seen a defender like Dyson Daniels at the guard position in a while now. So I wanted to really show him some love. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I was really close back and forth between Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr. as Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like either of them can win it. And if either of them win it, I'd be happy regardless of which one gets it. Just barely, I have Evan Mobley scraping out Jaren Jackson Jr. just to show some Cavs love. They are the #1 team in basketball right now, and they have an incredible defense. It was a little bit hard to differentiate how much I should weigh in the fact that Evan Mobley has the luxury of playing alongside Jarrett Allen a lot of the times. But they do stagger a lot, and Evan Mobley is the main rim protector majority of the time as well. So I decided that I wasn't going to fault him too much for just having an elite level rim protector next to him. And when you look at just the numbers of like steals per game, blocks per game, stuff like that, on paper, Jaren Jackson probably looks better than Evan Mobley. But like I said, we got to split hairs here to see who wins and who gets second place. Both are elite level defenders. The Cavs team defense is better than the Grizzlies, so that gave just a little slight point to Evan Mobley. And then also when you look at their defensive ratings just individually, which I know is a little bit of flawed stat, Evan Mobley also has a better defensive rating there. So he slightly, just barely edged him out. We'll have to see, though. It'll be a tight race to finish off the year. Moving on to our next award, and that is Sixth Man of the Year. I have Malik Beasley winning this one, with Peyton Pritchard coming in second and DeAndre Hunter coming in third. The Sixth Man of the Year race is one of my favorite ones, just because this year I feel like there's so many good candidates to this. Shout out to Ty Jerome, who barely missed this list. I left him off in exchange for his new teammate, DeAndre Hunter. I don't want to talk too much about Ty Jerome, because he will come up later in the video, not to spoil anything. But these 3 candidates of DeAndre Hunter, Peyton Pritchard, and Malik Beasley are all fantastic choices for Sixth Man of the Year. DeAndre Hunter is a little bit of an interesting one though, because when you look at his numbers, he started off the year in Atlanta and he was coming off their bench averaging 19 points per game, just absolutely killing it for them offensively. Then the Hawks, they were not that good or a little bit disappointing, so they sold at the trade deadline, traded him to the Cavs, obviously. And DeAndre Hunter is still doing his thing off the bench for the Cavs, still being a great offensive punch for them. But his points per game dropped to about 14 points per game. The efficiencies went up, though, so like I said, still doing his thing. It's just a little weird to really gauge how good or how important he's going to be for this Cavs bench, because it's only been a few games so far, and obviously we've already seen a little bit in drop in production just because there's more mouths to feed out there in Cleveland. And if I'm being honest, Peyton Pritchard was my sixth man of the year for a big chunk of this season. I was just super impressed in how much he's improved to be just a real impactful guard, a guy that will bring the ball up and score for himself, play make a little bit too, you know, three-point shooting off the bench. He's one of the best in the NBA with that as well. Just the definition of like a spark plug type of guy. Obviously, the Celtics are one of the best teams in the NBA, and Peyton Pritchard is one of the best bench guys on that team. So it makes sense to show him some love. But notice I said one of the best three-point shooters coming off the bench, because the number one best three-point shooter off the bench this year has been by far Malik Beasley, and he has been just perfect for Detroit. I've been a huge advocate of getting talent and shooting around Cade Cunningham, and he checks both of those boxes. He's the Pistons' second leading scorer, which is crazy to say about Malik Beasley. Just that shows how incredible he's been this season. As I'm recording this video, the Pistons are currently on an 8-game win streak, including beating the Boston Celtics just last night. And Malik Beasley is the sole reason they won that game. Just his energy as soon as he checked into the game was incredible. He hit a three, got an offensive foul, hit another three, was dunking in transition, talking to the crowd, dancing, running up the court. He was feeling himself last night against the Boston Celtics, and that's just a glimpse of what he's done this year for the Detroit Pistons. I really hope he finds long-term success here in Detroit and can sign a long-term contract, because man, I've been loving Malik Beasley. Next up, we have Most Improved Player, and this is another super interesting award to look at. My winner is Norman Powell, and I have Trey Murphy III coming in second and Ty Jerome coming in third. I know there's at least a few of you guys that are watching this video right now and saying to yourself, where's Cade Cunningham? If you look on FanDuel and on ESPN and all of the mainstream media, they have Cade Cunningham as the winner. Why don't you have it? Cade Cunningham was the #1 overall pick just 3-4 years ago at this point. #1 overall pick. He should not be eligible for this award. Even when you look at the stats, he's gone up 3 or 4 points per game. He's definitely improved as a player. He is not the most improved player in the NBA. I have stayed firm on this, that you cannot be a top lottery pick in this league and then go on to win Most Improved Player. The only way that I find that fine and okay is a situation like Victor Oladipo, who was drafted high but then was a bust for the first 3 years or 4 years, however many it was for him, and then found his footing and became an all-star, all-NBA, all-defensive player. That works out. John Morant, when he won it a few years ago, I hated it. I thought it should have went to Desmond Bane, because John Morant was the 2nd overall pick, and in year 3, he made a jump. Yes, that makes sense for the 3rd overall pick. I'm just way more in the thought process of the molded player that should win this are your Julius Randles, your Lauri Markkanens, maybe even Brandon Ingram, even though he was drafted a little bit high too. It took him a few seasons to kind of find his footing. That's the type of player I want to win Most Improved Player. I do not want #1 overall picks. I know Wemby was even in conversations before the season started. Like, cut it out. Looking at my top 3, though, I'm really happy with these 3 guys and the improvements they've made. Starting off with Ty Jerome. I don't know if he even counts, considering last year he played a total of 15 minutes in the NBA. But when you look at just improved, it was a guy that was barely in the league to now he is a super integral part of the #1 team in basketball. He comes off their bench for the Cavs, of course, and it's just, he runs their offense, plays alongside their guard seamlessly, catch a shoot 3, playmaking, getting to the rim. You know, he's just super important to what the Cavs do. And like I said, from a guy that barely was in the NBA to now a key 6-man, 7th man off your bench, you know, that's definitely improved a lot. Then you have a guy like Trey Murphy, who added 7 points per game to his averages. Obviously, with New Orleans dealing with a lot of the injuries, to say it lightly, he's had a lot more opportunity to really show himself, but this is the first time we've seen him really put it all together, getting to the rim, shooting the 3 ball, creating for himself. You know, I really have enjoyed watching Trey Murphy III play all season. But the #1 guy that is pretty obvious and should definitely win it, as long as Cade doesn't steal it from him, is Norman Powell. He's added 10 points per game to his averages this season. And I've said it before on the channel, but I'll say it again. When Norman Powell came out there before the season started and said, hey, Paul George is gone, I look at it as addition by subtraction. I'm pretty sure I laughed out loud when I read that quote and saw that video. I am very sorry for doubting you, Norman Powell. You proved me wrong. It was 100% addition by subtraction because he just came in, took all those shots, and ran with it. We're coming down to the last few awards. This one is Coach of the Year, where I have Kenny Atkinson of the Cavs winning it, with J.B. Bickerstaff of the Pistons coming in second, and Mark Daigneault of the OKC Thunder in third. Big shout out to Rudy Fernandez too. He is the first guy off the list for me. I just feel like he's really maximized the whole roster in Brooklyn. You know, the Nets have really overachieved by a long shot in my eyes. I thought that they were I thought they would be close with the Wizards as the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I had them as the 15th seed coming into the NBA season. Now they're the 11th seed. They're kind of close to even making the play-in tournament, which would be wild. You know, that's something to say about how bad the bottom of the East is, but also how good Rudy Fernandez has been at getting these guys to really just buy in and play to the best of their abilities. This is not a talented roster by any means, but just last night, we saw them go head-to-head with the OKC Thunder and give them a run for their money. But the guys that I do have on here are Mark Daigneault in third, just because the OKC Thunder are the #1 team out east, or out west, I mean, and they really have gapped the rest of the Western Conference. I know the West is super, super loaded and has a lot of good teams. That just makes it even more impressive that OKC has separated themselves from everyone else and been solidified as the #1 team out west for the entire season. Then I have J.B. Bickerstaff in second. Obviously, no one expected Detroit to be this good. When you look at them last season, losing 28 games in a row, to now they're the 6th seed and maybe can climb all the way up to 4 out in the Eastern Conference. You know, big shout out to J.B. Bickerstaff. I had Kenny Atkinson as the winner though, just because when you look at Detroit, obviously the change in head coach has really benefited them a lot, and also just growth internally, whether it's from Cade or Asar Thompson getting healthy, or you know, Isaiah Stewart kind of changing his role, Jalen Duren looking a lot better this season. A lot of that can be attributed to their success this season. But also, they brought in a lot of high-quality guys like a Malik Beasley, who I talked about as my 6th Man of the Year winner. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been solid for them. Tobias Harris, especially as of late, has been really good for him. So not to take away anything from J.B. Bickerstaff, I think he deserves a lot of credit. They also helped add talent to this team, and I think that's a big part on why they're so much better this year. When you look at the Cavs, however, this is damn near the same exact team as last year, except now Ty Jerome's playing more minutes, and as of now, they traded for DeAndre Hunter. I remember making my preseason preview video for the Cavs and said their offseason moves was literally get a new coach. They didn't bring in anyone, they didn't lose anyone. It was literally, yo, JB, get out of here. Kenny, come in. Now let's work. And the fact that that's what they did, and Kenny Atkinson was able to maximize this roster to be the #1 team in basketball, he deserves his flowers. And last but not least, we have Clutch Player of the Year, where I have Jalen Brunson, Captain Clutch, winning it. Then Nikola Jokic coming in second, and Darius Garland coming in third. I don't want to bore you guys with stats, but I do kind of feel like to an extent that's what Clutch Player of the Year boils down to. There's not much room for nuance here. So, I'm going to bore you guys with stats real quick. Looking at Darius Garland, he was the early front runner for this award just because his efficiencies are out of this world when you look at it in the clutch. He's averaging 3 points per game on 59% from the field and 58% from 3. I do feel like what sold his chance to actually win this award was that game against the Houston Rockets a few months ago now at this point, where he missed 2 very clutch free throws, and then the Cavs ended up losing that game because of that. But still, all in all, the Cavs have a very good record in the clutch, and Darius Garland is one of their better performers in the clutch. Then I have Nikola Jokic, who's averaging 4.5 points per game in the clutch with a rebound and a half and an assist. He's shooting 57% from the field in the clutch, 54% from 3, and the Nuggets have a 13-9 record there. He just kind of dominates anytime he's on the court, especially in clutch time when they need to get a bucket. Jokic is damn near unguardable once he touches that paint. So, you know, it works out pretty well. Before the winner, I have Jalen Brunson. Of course, as you guys know, I am a Knicks fan, so it's very nice to have a guy as clutch as JB on your team. He's averaging over 5 points per game in the clutch, along with a full assist per game, shooting 51% from the field, only 30% from 3, but when it comes down to clutch time, JB likes to get to the rim, get to his mid-range game a lot more. Not really too much of those threes, even though last night against the Sixers, he hit a few of those, and whoosh. The Knicks started off really bad in clutch games, but since the calendar year has changed, they have been almost undefeated in those clutch games, and a lot of that is because of Jalen Brunson. Of course, against the Sixers, like I mentioned, he was super clutch in their kind of comeback. They choked the lead, went down, and then Jalen Brunson brought back to win the game there. But then also against the Hawks, he's had a big comeback game. The Houston Rockets, the Chicago Bulls. Anytime the Knicks are in a close game, you look to Jalen Brunson, and he usually delivers. And that is my official Pulse All-Star Awards ballot. Let me know in the comments below which one you agree and disagree with the most. I'm always down for those discussions below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.